All right, I'm Haley Altman. I'm a strategic advisor at Litera, and I'm joined by Dave Cunningham, Chief Innovation Officer at Reed Smith. And we are excited today to really delve into how law firms and legal teams can leverage critical data so that they can continue to grow their business. And so we're excited to talk about why this is so important to law firms and how vendors are partnering with law firms and responding to help solve this important problem. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Dave.
All right. Thanks, Haley. Well, we wanted to identify some core principles up front. One is that we find firms often when they're focused on data analytics and metrics, it's most often in the financial aspect, even whether you're looking at profitability, revenue, hours, rates, et cetera. And we want to emphasize that there are so many more business workflows in a firm that deserve equal attention and a really huge benefit. And the one we want to focus on today is really the business development, the pipeline aspect of the firm. And one thing that's fascinating about that is it's one of the few areas that's a leading indicator. Even if you are forecasting financials, you're doing it based on lagging indicators, how we billed last month. But knowing your pipeline of the firm and what's coming towards you is truly leading. And in other industries, it would be a norm, but in law firms, it's quite innovative to know your pipeline. And so investing in having these systems, integrating them together, automating the processes so that you have the data is key, because saying I have a data warehouse isn't enough if you don't have 10 times the data that good processes can give you, like having an end-to-end business development flow. And then also is making sure this information can get into the hands of lawyers. No longer would we expect lawyers to have to call a human to ask them what's in those systems. That's a fundamental change.
Yeah, one of the things I think that we saw in talking with clients a lot is this information is really siloed into different systems, and people's access rights and their ability to flow between systems to get the information really seems to be a big problem. But there's a huge need to have this information in order to put together the best pitches, to understand what markets you might want to target. And these are all, to Dave's point, these are all leading indicators that can show us where there are these growth opportunities. And so how do we really start to take a look at what data is available, where does it sit, and how do we make it more accessible so people can ask more complex questions? So I think that's been a really big focus on a lot of people, breaking down those data silos.
And what's really cool is once you do that, it really unlocks a lot of insights that you can provide to the firm in your role. And I use the word insights because I certainly learned from our leadership that they don't want more bar charts. They don't want more dashboards. They say, tell me what the data is telling me. And it's a higher calling. And having data across these areas is a much more interesting role for us, I believe. And so one example I've got, connecting dots. One thing we've really enjoyed this year is now we're tracking 20,000 of our alumni, and we're tracking their job progression. And as one is promoted in a company, we check to say, is it a company that one of our practices named in their strategic plan that they would like to work with that we don't already? And if so, we identify that, and then we say, well, who knows that alumni? Oh, it's not that practice head, but it's Jonathan over there. Let's connect the practice head to Jonathan to the alumni, and then that helps them with an on-ramp to the company we identified. And that is, that's not rocket science, but it is just connecting dots in really smart ways in a millisecond rather than it happenstance a couple of years later. And just a million more examples once you really have complete quality data internally and externally. So at Reed Smith, we have spent the last 2-3 years investing considerably in this, what we call the strategy to matter process, starting with those strategic plans, standing up the CRM ecosystem, understanding pricing and resourcing, intake, and then obviously understanding everything we can about those matters, whether it's at intake or later from the documents. And so we make sure that any outreach turns into pipeline, and pipeline, we understand how it turns into a matter. We don't lose track of it as it goes along with this. And since I'm here with Haley, I'll highlight these two areas where we work very closely with Litera to use primarily their systems to make that happen. And then we tie that into our data warehouse and our analytics center of excellence. And then we went another step, which is creating a unified partner-friendly interface on top of all that. And we did that because we wanted our lawyers to see insights across our systems, not expected to log into different systems. And we wanted to make it mobile and personalized to deliver things maybe they're not even thinking about asking for, but definitely to create a layer above the systems and the process for them in the way that they think. And that it's been a huge impact on us. It's a real differentiator, but it's an incredible amount of work. The team we've had to build to pull this off is not something I recommend for most firms. And so Haley's going to recommend how Litera is helping to make that easier.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the best things about working with such innovative firms like Reed Smith and with Dave is that it really helps you start to think about how these products and this data come together. And so what we've been doing is taking the different product suites we've had, looking at all the data integration points and starting to build that layer on top of it so the data comes together in a way where you can ask those complex questions. We saw a lot with foundation and experience management. Hey, we do a lot of work for life science companies in this area, but for a small subset, we do tax. Maybe we can recommend that the pipeline growth could be offering tax services to the other life science. Like, how do we make the connection, connect the dots, as Dave had mentioned in there? And it's why one of the products that you saw on the last slide that we've been really focused on is this lattice. How can I ask these complex questions, taking data from documents that we pull from Dragon with experience data, client data, to give that picture? And so the Litera vision kind of going forward is going to be this whole partner experience. How do these legal teams, partners, lawyers get access to the data where they're working? Whether a question comes in via email and they need to understand client experience and representative matters and what's market, or when they're drafting documents in Word, we want to bring information to where people are, but breaking down those silos and allowing for financial data to pair with matter data, to pair with client data and documents to give that complete answer. So that's the goal, give people the information where they work. And it's great to work with teams. And if you can put it under a infrastructure like Reed Smith 360, we want to be where people are.
Well said. And this is just one of the areas, but this is such an area that has just a huge impact on growing the firm. It is our number one initiative. And I'm glad to answer your questions for either one of us. Thank you very much.